Productive Pastor 86, 3 mental models for strategic productivity. What's going on, friends? Productive Pastor 86 is the last one of 2023. I'm actually recording this on Christmas Eve before I go to bed for Christmas Eve, because I head out on a family vacation, be gone all week long, not around Productive Pastor. Going to make sure this happens, though. Last week I had a little bit of a hiccup. Did everything to get the podcast released except actually upload the audio. I even scheduled the post, but anyway, came in a couple days late, but it's all there. It's the end of the year. So many things are going on at the end of the year, but one of the things that happens at the beginning of every new year is most people think about, what are the things that they want to change? What do they want to get better at? And this is not going to do like a goal-setting episode, anything like that, because there's tons of ways and places you can find things to do that across the internet. It seems like everybody is doing some sort of a reset in January. I've got one. I'm doing one. I'm doing a Jocko Willnick's Echelon Fronts Deathcore Reset. But I'm not going to talk about that to you today. What I'm going to do is I want to give you 3 mental models for strategic productivity for when you come to that realization earlier in the year, or maybe as you're doing some planning, that sort of thing. I usually do a lot of planning for the new year that week between Christmas and New Year's. Not doing it this year, but normally. But I want to give you 3 tools that are going to help you maybe think through what some of that stuff might be, to think through those big things you want to do, to think through those big questions you might have hanging over your head, all that sort of stuff. We're just going to get straight back into the content with this. You can check out the show notes at revchadbrooks.com/PPP/086. And let's just jump straight into it now. So strategy, at its basic form, is all about building awareness and planning action. It's a twofold thing. Now, yes, it's a Clifton Strength, and the Clifton Strength, the Strength Finders test. It's my number one strength. It's where I default to with a lot of things. But here's the deal. Strategy is not something that is this skill that people can or cannot have. Like I said, at its basic form, it's about you build awareness and then you plan action. Like, that's it. So what do you do, though, when you're facing the blank page? Or what are you doing when you're trying to figure out a way to deal with a problem in a helpful way? How do you think through some of these things in order to get that awareness and to build that plan up? That is where we can learn how to do this. Now, there are certain folks that are gifted at this in different regards, but I think everyone, especially in ministry, especially if you're the senior leader. I know so many of the folks that listen to this podcast are, solo pastors or leading churches of 125 or under, and that's the normal size church in America now. But one of the things that I have learned in a post-COVID world is, regardless of what your church size is, like my church, we're running 20 people on a good Sunday in my bivocational church. But we need strategy, because in this world now, those 20 people I know are actually like 45 active adults. And this is a time where we have to be strategic. So we have to think through these things. So what I want to do is I want to give you some mental models, 3 mental models. I love mental models. Mental models, like at a broke down level, are just repeatable frameworks to help you think. And that's really what it is. It's a way for you to help think, avoid that blank page, identify the problems, like I said, in a helpful way. So 3 mental models for you to take, just put in your pocket, come in the show notes, and you can find out some of this. I actually have a diagram of one of these, and it's my new favorite mental model to think through. You might want to cruise over to the show notes so you can see that and grab that. But let's just jump into it. So the first thing that you might be trying to find is clarity. And I have 2 coaching questions that I love. I ask them to individuals. I ask them to churches. I ask them to other folks I work with or coach with. I ask them to myself often, and they're just a fantastic way to begin to understand this. We jumped off on the year planning workshop a couple of weeks back with these questions, and this is what they are. Number 1, what do you want more of? And number 2, what do you want less of? And what I would do is I would set a timer. I would grab a sheet of paper and I would give myself, 5 minutes or 10 minutes on the first question, then flip the sheet of paper over, set the timer for the same amount, and then give yourself the same, and just go for it. Like, just brain dump these things, because here's the thing. The first time you get something down, you begin thinking about it, and then you can think about it some more and think about it some more, and you're going to end up clarifying so much, because you'll get to this point where you can say, okay, I've got to get this down. They're going to help you clarify things. And then what you can do to help you even more is take these things and move them from the subjective to the objective. Okay, move them from the, I don't know what to do here right now, to I need to understand a clear path forward. And there's something powerful, especially when you're working with a group of people and looking at these things and saying, okay, these might be very subjective, that might be very generalist or very just unhelpful comments, but let's do the work to make this an objective statement, a statement that is true. And it's all based off that two questions. What do you want more of? What do you want less of? Think about the broad future. What it might be is, what might this look like if things were different? And you also can do it in the negative as well. What is the outcome of the less is? Like if every single thing I want less of are the things I end up actually getting more of this year, like what is the outcome there? Running through those couple of quick questions is going to give you just a huge amount of clarity to understand things. And then that kind of second hint underneath this clarity model is to just take everything and move it from the subjective to the objective, to the thing, a very powerful, action-focused statement to get you there. So that's the first one. It's the mental model to help you understand clarity. The second one is a mental model to help you understand design. And this is called the 5 Whys. This actually developed through Toyota and their manufacturing process as they were trying to figure out what actual real problems were. Because here's the thing. When you get faced with a problem, so many times we'll get emotional, we'll kind of live in that state and that place, and we're going to have a really, really difficult time actually identifying something that we can do something about. Or we're going to waste tons of time solving a superficial problem. What you might want to do is, take these, what do you want more of? What do you want less of? When you get clarity out of that, when you come up with this idea of, okay, what do I want more of? What do I need to do? Why am I actually fighting against this? Go into the 5 Whys. This is it's just perfect. And remember, stay objective. It's going to be so tempting to get judgmental or to get anxious, all those sorts of things when you're doing the 5 Whys. But let's kind of do this. Let's do something that somebody says, I want less of in my year. Well, what do you want less of? Well, one thing, my schedule is absolute chaos. Okay, why is your schedule absolute chaos? Well, I kind of let anyone or anything come into my office. Okay. Why does anyone and everyone come into your office? Or why does every single thing hit your desk first? Well, people come to me first. Okay. Why do people come to you first? And this is not easy. This isn't quick. Sometimes you have to think about it. But why do people come to you first? And then you might realize, well, we're a small church with a small staff, a couple part-time people, some good volunteers, and we're just kind of shooting from the hip all the time. We actually haven't created any SOPs because you realize a lot of the things they come in to ask you, while they might be different, they're not 100% different. They might just be 10% different from something you've done before. So, we haven't created SOPs. We might need to create SOPs. Okay. Well, why haven't you created some SOPs? Well, we've not really clarified any sorts of goals or focuses. Okay. Why have you? And you see where we're going with this? We're asking this why? And sometimes it might take you 5 whys to get to the bottom. Sometimes you might actually realize that you get to a really solid action point, like we haven't created SOPs. Well, the answer, okay, well, then let's start creating some SOPs. I've seen it before. The 5 part of the 5 whys is not sacrosanct. It's not holy. But you need to ask the why until you get to an actual actionable thing that you have the ability to do. And that's a really, really simple thing that you can do amongst yourself. You can do it with your leadership team, all sorts of things like that. But the 5 whys is just an incredible, powerful tool to help you design what you need to be doing. And the last thing I want to teach you about is more awareness, because there's something about strategy. With strategy, it's, you're building awareness and you're planning action. And so awareness is powerful. Think about what all it can bring you. Awareness helps you in little decisions. Awareness helps you in big decisions. It helps you learn to think about the task you're approaching. It helps you learn to filter the tasks you're approaching, all of those things. And I found this recently. I got a coaching resource to use for group vision workshops, and I was kind of flipping through some of the stuff, and I saw this little circle diagram, and I read it and looked at it, and I was like, this is absolute genius. I shared a picture of it, an image on Twitter, X, or somebody called it Twix the other day. I want to start calling it Twix. I think that's just what we need to do. That sounds cooler anyway. But I shared a picture of it on Twix, and a friend of mine who's a pastor and is also a counselor came back and said, yeah, this is huge. This is like just straight therapy, because so many people do not realize that there is a shift that you can take when you're worried about things as you're trying to gain clarity over them. He's like, this is huge. This is a great tool. So go to the show notes, revchadbrooks.com/PPP/086 if you want to see this diagram. But it's just 3 circles, and it's a big circle, a medium circle inside of the big circle, and then a little circle inside the other 2 circles. But think about this. The first big circle is this. It's concerns. This is something you are worried about, but you cannot do anything about it. Okay, that's your first stage, the concern. The second stage is the middle circle. It's influence. You're worried about this thing, but you can do a few things about it. And then the inner circle, the last circle, the small circle, is agency. You're worried about something, and you can absolutely do something about it. So, go to the show notes, look at that diagram. I'll probably share it again on Twix over the next couple of weeks or anyway, or just draw it out yourself. I mean, it's just a big circle and then a medium circle inside and a little circle with those headings: concern, influence, and agency. So think about this. How many times in ministry are there what ifs? Are there things you're worried about and you feel like, I can't do any single thing about it? Like, I've talked to so many pastors over the last couple of months, and one of the things they're really worried about is they've seen a giving decrease this last year, and they know that they're not going to be able to finish the budget in the way they had, and they're going to dip into reserves. Now, some of that stuff is, oh my goodness, we're not going to have enough stuff that's going to come in. That's a really concerning statement, something you're worried about, but you're talking about it. It's such a massive, huge, large role. There really isn't anything you can do about it. And this is where the beauty of this comes from. You then ask yourself the question, okay, I'm concerned about this, but I feel like I can't do anything about it. What would it take to move this into the realm of influence? I'm worried about this, but there's a few things I actually can do. So you might realize, and you know what? We need to think about what a year-end giving campaign would look like. We need to think about, what does it mean for us to communicate with the folks who have given to the church this year and thank them for their giving, all this sort of thing, but then tell them that we're still worried about making the budget. And also, what does it mean to communicate very differently to people who are active in your church or there and might not have given that year? What you might realizing is you don't have the ability and the systems to make that separation easily and to communicate that way. And if that sounds interesting, hold your britches for several months, but I might be doing something to help you understand that sort of piece. But the last thing is agency. I'm worried about it, but I can absolutely do something about it. So where you might be worried is, okay, I don't know if people know we have not met our budget yet. We can communicate that to them. And you move that thing of anxiousness, that thing that might be keeping you up at night, you've moved it from the concern category into the influence, into agency. And what you might have actually been doing is going back and using some of those previous mental models. You might have decided to play the 5 whys on the things that you are concerned about. You might ask yourself that question, what do we want more of or less of when it comes to the way that we communicate our financial ministry to people in the church? Run these things together, because that's the power this has. And for me, when I look at strategy, when I look at creating strategy systems with churches or with people or with nonprofits, I've been doing some nonprofit work lately. It's not about having, okay, these are the 3 things we're going to do. It's about having 15 of these mental models that I know really, really well, and understanding which one we need to be working on at the moment. Because so many times, understanding a mental model or having somebody lead you through the mental model and then getting a sheet of paper or a whiteboard out for 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes, you're going to be able to find the awareness and the action clarity you need to be strategic, to say, okay, there are several different ways this can play out, and these are the things that we are going to need depending on which way we want for this to go, or which way that it just ends up happening to us. Jocko Willink, in his book Extreme Ownership, he says the enemy has a vote. Now, he's talking about combat, but, there's all sorts of things that are there, and that's what it is. Strategy is about, you're building awareness, you're building that up, and then you're planning action. And that awareness also means what it might take to shift your action over. But just that move, that concern, influence, agency, it's big, it's huge. And so if you've got things you're worried about, start sorting them out. Think about what the concern and influence. Ask yourself that question: what do I need to do, or what can I do perhaps to move this over to the next circle? So you're going to be hearing more about strategic productivity in 2024. Like I said, I've been doing a lot of this kind of future planning work myself, and I'm really excited with some things I think are going to be the next phase of Productive Pastor. And a lot of this has been the last 6 months as I've been writing online, interacting with you, all these sorts of things, and trying to gain a longer-term idea. Like, what is the 5-year plan for Productive Pastor? Like, what are we doing here? What is the larger shape here? What does this mean for this to perhaps be bigger than one of the 3 irons that I have in my fire? So you'll hear more about strategic productivity a lot as it's coming out. But this is the end of the year. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate each and every one of you. We've got an awesome, fantastic community of like-minded pastors all over the world, and it's a treasure to host you all together. If you're not part of it yet, make sure to come over to Facebook, join the Productive Pastor community. You'll find the link in the show notes. It's the Productivity Party. Over 1,000 pastors there hanging out, talking, doing our thing together. So I hope you had a Merry Christmas. Hope you have a Happy New Year, and I will see you in 2024.